Lesson 4. Declaring Independence. Listen carefully to find out how the colonists tried to solve the problems caused by the shot heard around the world. News of the shot heard around the world spread throughout the colonies. Once again, the colonists sent representatives to a meeting in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to discuss what had happened and to decide what to do. Do you remember what a representative is? The representatives at the Second Continental Congress were divided in their feelings about breaking away from Britain and becoming a completely independent nation. The word independent means not controlled by others. If the colonists became independent from Great Britain, they could decide things on their own. But several more small battles in the Massachusetts colony convinced them that they needed an army and someone to serve as a commander. General George Washington seemed to be the perfect choice to lead the army. He had fought to protect the colonies before, and he knew how the British fought. Dressed in his military uniform at the Continental Congress, he was respected by everyone and was easily elected as the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. George Washington would be in charge of the army created by the Continental Congress. Washington set off to join troops from across the colonies in Massachusetts, ready to meet the British in battle. Meanwhile, the Continental Congress decided to meet in Philadelphia. Among the representatives was a man named Benjamin Franklin. Franklin, who was born in the colony of Massachusetts and then lived in the colony of Pennsylvania, had actually moved to London, England for a few years. He had gone there to speak out in Parliament against the unfair taxing of the American colonies, and the fact that the Americans had no say in Parliament. Americans had no official representatives to speak out for them in Parliament, but Franklin went and spoke as their representative. Benjamin Franklin was very good at arguing, and he was able to get the British to remove some of their taxes on the colonies. Benjamin Franklin had many British friends in London, but after the Boston Tea Party, an angry British Parliament began to distrust and dislike him. Why do you think the British Parliament started to dislike Franklin? And so, in 1775, Franklin decided that it was time to return home, arriving in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, just in time for the second meeting of the Continental Congress. The other representatives were delighted to have someone there who had spent so much time on the other side of the ocean. He could help them decide what to do. The Continental Congress decided it was time to announce to Parliament and to the British King that the colonies no longer wanted to be part of Great Britain. They wanted to declare themselves a free and independent nation. An official declaration would have to be written so that Parliament and the King would take them seriously. Who would write this important Declaration of Independence, or this statement to declare the colonists free? The members of the Continental Congress considered different people. Among those mentioned for the job was Thomas Jefferson, a 32-year-old representative from Virginia and one of the youngest men there. Jefferson had not been able to attend the First Continental Congress, but the representatives were all familiar with his powerful writing. Jefferson was elected to be its author. What would Jefferson do if he was going to be the author of the Declaration of Independence? Thomas Jefferson went back to the rooms he was renting in Philadelphia, got out some paper, and scratched his head. He dipped his pen in ink and started writing. Pens in those days did not hold the ink. The pen had to be dipped into the bottle of ink. Sometimes he stopped and crossed out some words, then went on. He knew a lot of important people were going to read this, so he had to make it good. Every morning for 17 days he got up at dawn and got to work, writing and rewriting to make sure it was his best work. The Continental Congress liked Thomas Jefferson's work. Benjamin Franklin, among others, changed a word or two here and there, but most of the words remained those of young Jefferson. On July 4th, 1776, The Declaration of Independence was approved by a vote of the Continental Congress. It was sent to a printing shop that very night. Riders headed out across the countryside with copies. In town squares all over the colonies, people gathered to hear Thomas Jefferson's words read aloud. One part is still read again and again today. I want you to listen to a part of our Declaration of Independence, and then I will explain to you what it means. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those words mean that nobody is born any better than anyone else, and that all people all over the world have equal rights, such as the right to live, the right to liberty, which means freedom, and the right to be happy. We still celebrate this important event every 4th of July, and you could call it the birthday of the United States. The 4th of July is now a national holiday to celebrate the Declaration of Independence and declaring freedom from Great Britain. What did the Declaration of Independence do? Who was the representative who went to Great Britain, was very good at arguing, and got the British to remove some of the taxes they had put on the colonies? What important decisions were made at the Second Continental Congress? Who was chosen to write the Declaration of Independence? Why do you think Thomas Jefferson was chosen to be the author? How do you think the colonists felt when they first heard the Declaration of Independence? What do we celebrate each 4th of July? What is something that happens on the 4th of July to celebrate our nation's birthday? What do you think of when you hear these words from the Declaration of Independence? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. In the read aloud you heard, the representatives to the Second Continental Congress were divided in their feelings about breaking away from Britain and becoming a completely independent nation. Say the word independent with me. Independent. Independent means not controlled by others. Canada, the United States of America, and Mexico are 3 independent nations on the continent of North America. The word independent can also be used to describe a person. An independent person is able to take care of themselves. Who would you describe as an independent person? Try to use the word independent when you tell about that person. What's the word we've been talking about? The opposite, or antonym, of independent is dependent. An independent person does for themselves what a dependent person relies on someone else to do for them. I'm going to name a task. If it is something that you can do by yourself, say, I am independent. If it describes something that you need help with, then you can say, I am dependent. Tying your shoes. Washing your clothes. Making breakfast. Reading a book. Getting dressed.